Okay, boys and girls, today we're going to replace the bearing hub assembly on the front of a 2002 Chrysler Town & Country. And you can't buy just the bearing and the race, so it's that makes it a little bit more pricey. You can do that for the back, but not for the front. You have to buy the whole assembly because it's integral right in here on the bearing. This is going to turn with the shaft, and then the bearing itself is going to be turning as well. So it's just a little touchy there. So what we did to get started with was we got most of the pressure off of the front tire here. And then we broke the lug nuts loose, and we pulled this center cap off here too, by the way. And then we just went ahead and took the whole tire off because we had to get the cotter pin out down here because there's not enough room inside there to bend the wings around and then push it out the other side. So it's better to just go ahead and do that to pull it out. And then after that, then you put the wheel back on, put a couple of lug nuts on there as you see, and then set the wheel down on the ground so it's nice and firm. You don't have to go all the way. And then in my case, I took, because I didn't have a metric socket that big, I took 1.25 inches and used my breaker bar and broke the nut loose. It's pretty new, as you can see, because I just replaced this CV axle a couple of weeks ago. And so with that, then now you jack it back up, you take the tire off. And then we'll get in here where we're going to take the caliper off so we can get to the rotor to take it off, and then we'll get to the bearing hub assembly to pull it off. So we'll be getting there shortly. You guys just kick back, and if you're doing this yourself, just go ahead and follow along. Well, boys and girls, since we didn't have to, we're not replacing the pads. I didn't take the pad carrier off of the bracket mount right there. I just took the 2 bolts out right there and then popped it right off the structure here. Yeah, that structure there. I was really hoping not to have to do this, but in order to do this, because the bolts, there's only 4 bolts that hold that whole hub in. But you can see there's one right there, and there's another one right there on the bottom. There's 2 more on the other side, just like that. But because there's no clearance between the notches on the CV axle, you can't get a socket on it, and I'm not really sure I want to put an open-end wrench in there. And it might be we only have to drag it out just enough to clear. In fact, that's probably all we have to do. Just drag it off of the axle out here far enough to be able to clear those notches, which is what the ABS sensor counts and is measured during a stop. And this is right here is a 10mm bolt that you take out, and then this is just a place stab in order to position the sensor here. That way, you know, it's just a little stick that goes in here, and then you bolt it down, and that puts it in the right position, the right distance, and such away from the notches here that are on the CV axle. So it's always strobing those when you're going along. So I guess the easy way here on the Chrysler Town & Country is to take these 2 bolts out, these 2 bolts out right here, that'll free this from the shock tower and allow us to actually pull this whole assembly from here out a bit, and then we can get the socket on it. Or if we have to, then we'll put a box wrench on it, but I dang sure will not put an open end wrench on it. That's just begging for failure and disaster, because it'll round those nuts off, and you really are in a bad way. After that, what you'd have to do is you'd have to take your grinder and get in here and just cut right down to the bolt, right through that bolt right there, and then this will pop, come right off the end of the shaft, and you'd have to do all 4 of them. So it's just a little bit of work to do that, because the base right here is what's threaded, not inside of here, and then what's left over from the stumps right there, you just pop. Well, you might have clearance depending on where the side of the nut is. It may or may, yeah, it would clear. So anyways, I'm gonna get down to it. I'll be right back. You guys just follow along now. Well, boys and girls, as you can see, I had to take it all the way off of the CV axle spline, because there just wasn't going to be any room for it. The only good part about it is that I lubricated that a couple of weeks ago, the spline here, when I replaced this axle, and it just took a little bit of tapping, just like what you watch in the other videos. But if it gets hard when you're tapping on it, then use a block of wood. Don't use metal to metal, because all you do is you wind up mushrooming this in, and if you put your nut on it while you're doing it, and it's going to rip the threads here, but the nut itself is sacrificial. And then after that, this comes next, and then you have no way to go. So here we have it. Here's the 4 bolts, and I've already loosened them up, and I'm getting ready to take it off, and then just put the other one, mate the other one right up to it, and then put them bolts back on. So after I get done with that, I'll be right back to you. Okay, now just for kicks and giggles, I pulled it out, and after I took the bolts out, and there it is, there's the bore. It came out really easy like. So next I'm going to clean that up in there. It looks like beeswax or something. And boy, the shield, well, actually it should be seal, not shield. There's a difference between sealed bearings and shielded bearings, and these are supposed to be sealed bearings. So that's got a lot of crud on it, and I don't know, after 10 years maybe it got down in there somehow when it shouldn't have. But that gives you a look at it. So now it's just a matter of just sliding the other end up in there and bolting it in from the backside, and then just putting it all back together. Don't that sound like fun, y'all? You just gotta love it when a plan comes together. All right, I'll see you shortly. Okay, boys and girls, there it is. Boy, she just pushed right on there, just as easy as, I can't believe it. It's sort of like the other side that just jumped right off almost. Now, I don't know what the torque spec is for the bolts that hold this bearing assembly in, bearing and hub assembly, but I torqued them down to 50 pounds because they look like aluminum bolts. This is aluminum housing here. These tower bolts up here, they appear to be aluminum as well, and I torqued them to 70. Now, if you don't think that torque makes a difference, if you get one of these bolts tighter than the other, then it's possible, I don't know how likely or not, but it's possible that this plate could warp. And if it warps, then that puts this a kilter out here, and it causes strange things while you're driving. So it's always best to torque when you got a place of stress, because believe it or not, it will. No, you might have it just tight as you can do it, and say, well, I got it tight, I got it the same all the way around. That's a bunch of hockey. I can tell you that right now. So it's maybe not so true up here, but here, because it's rotating, it does make a big difference. So I would suggest that if you have a torquing bar, that you find your torques and your torque number, and you do that. Anything that's rotating. Okay? All right, so I'll be back to you later, because I'm going to start putting her back together. Yee-haw! Ain't she pretty? Okay, boys and girls, there it is. Caliper's back on there. All nice and tight. Got us our rotors on here. It won't be tight until we put the wheel on there and then knock it down. But what we got to do next is we got to put the nut back on here. Then we're going to put the tire on, and we're going to tighten down 2 lug nuts. We're going to set it down lightly with a little bit of pressure. We're going to put 150 pounds of torque right here on this axle nut, and then we're going to put our cap on the axle nut, and then we're going to run our cotter pin through there after we take the tire off, of course. And then once we get that on there and the cotter pin through there, then we put the tire on there, all 5 lugs, drop it down, take her out for a test drive and see how she does. Hope you have good insurance. Well, that's it for me right now, buddies. So I hope everything worked out good for you. If not, woo, doggies, but don't she look pretty? Dadgone it. Okay, see you in the newspapers. Okay, boys and girls, there we go. All done. Didn't have any pieces left over either, except for the ones we replaced. Okay, so now I've done all the hard work. Your job is to go put this stuff away. So get busy now. You hear? Y'all get going now. I want all this put away within the next 10 minutes. I'll see you later. Bye. Just got to take her out for a test drive now. Oh, by the way, boys and girls, start to finish on this little project here was about 3 hours. That includes dragging out the tools, but not putting them away. So y'all have fun now. Let me know, give me a little comment or something if you happen to go through it and you run into a problem. Maybe I can help out, but maybe not.